Some people know, not a lot of people know yet though, that I landed a book deal, and we signed with Penguin, who's a major publisher in New York. Been going back and forth there for a few months now, to different meetings with my agent and then with different publishing houses, and we landed a 6-figure book deal. Am I allowed to say like how much it's for?
Just 6 figures fine.
6 figures fine. Okay, so we landed the book deal, and we thought it would be an interesting thing to talk about, because it's really cool to see what you can do with an audience and a blog. Like, a lot of people are curious as to how building an audience can actually help them grow, or help them in their career outside of being a blogger, because being a blogger is not a sexy thing, but all the things you get from it are pretty impressive and pretty cool. So that's just what we're talking about. So I don't know what questions. I mean, you said you had questions.
Yeah, I think what would be the most helpful is kind of us just starting. You just talk about how you went from blog to that.
When I first started thinking about doing a book, I was thinking obviously self-publishing, because it's just the easiest thing to do. But part of that was because I didn't feel like I could actually get a real agent and publisher, because it's just difficult, And I think it's I think that's where a lot of people stop. They're like, look, if I'm going to do a book, I might as well self-publish, because it's just a lower barrier of entry, right?
And the grind to getting a book published, if you have no connections, and no validation from, no credibility, it's basically impossible. I mean, I worked at a literary agency, a big one, William Morris Endeavor, WME, and as the assistant to an agent, and we would get submissions all the time from unsolicited sources.
And that's just to an agent.
That's just to an agent.
To the publisher, they don't always get
Yeah, so the agent's job is to basically filter out talent to the publisher, and then the process works as such. But unsolicited material that was sent to us, unsolicited meaning
right in the trash.
Yeah, literally, 1 out of every 200 submissions I would, by happenstance, just look at.
Really?
It's basically somebody sending you an email and then telling you to put it up on your blog. Imagine if you had made that a post on your blog and said, "Hey guys, I'm going to start reading articles for a living," and a million articles come in. You're like, "Oh wait, I can't filter this out." So you don't look at them.
That's true. Yeah, it's that's what Kirsten was telling me. She's like, "Yeah, I only work through referrals." So that's how. So I'm just going to go the self-published thing, and I moved to LA, and I met up with a friend of mine who I'd only met online before, Jordan Harbinger. Jordan runs the Art of Charm podcast, pretty big podcast, really big podcast,
really big podcast.
Biggest in the world, one of the biggest in the world on business and relationships. And we went out to lunch. He's a great guy. We became good friends, and he introduced me to a friend of his named Gabe. I met up with Gabe. Gabe's a kindred spirit. We kept in touch, and then there came a time, within the next 6 to 8 months of meeting Gabe, where I was in a situation where I had a chance to interview Lori Grenier for Shark Tank. Lori from Shark Tank, right? The way I got that interview, we can talk about later. But it was, I was able to get in contact with her, and I got the interview. But I didn't have anywhere to interview her at, so I was freaking out. I'm like, where do I take this interview? I can't take it at my house. I'm not gonna. What am I gonna do? How am I gonna get in touch with her and actually interview her in a nice place? So I started asking my friend circle. And I talked to Gabe, because he's a writer. I thought maybe he might know somewhere. And he, at the time, he had just started working at this television studio in Beverly Hills. So he introduced me to the owner / producer television studio. And I was like, "Hey, I know you don't know me, but I have this cool opportunity. Be happy to give you footage of it so you can use it on your network. I just want to really be able to do this." His name was Michael Lustig. He's a really cool guy, and he let me do it. And so I was in the studio that night. And so met Lori, and everything was good. And a great interview, and that was kind of my first kind of jumping off point into interviewing more people. And what ended up happening was I actually went on and signed on with that television company to produce more stuff with them, because they liked my interview. The interview never ended up airing on their network, but they liked my hustle. So they were like, "All right, well, we can do more stuff." So I started interviewing more people, celebrities, porn stars, writers, stuff like that. I ended up interviewing a New York Times bestselling author, Stephen Key. Did you see the one with the One Simple Idea? He wrote this book called One Simple Idea. He's an inventor. Anyone who's like born in the 80s would know this. He invented Teddy Ruxpin and laser tag.
Oh, wow.
Laser tag, yeah.
So everyone knows laser tag. So Stephen is a great guy. So Stephen started hooking me up with his connections. Like he's like, all right, well, you want to write for Entrepreneur? There's someone you're someone that they might want. So he introduced me to them, and then over time, we started thinking about writing. I started talking about writing a book. He's like, oh, I can introduce you to my agent, you know. And this is a kind of a big deal because an agent is a pretty big connection, and you want to like be conservative about the amount of introductions you offer because the introductions you offer have to be quality, and you prefer that anyone that you introduce actually ends up signing with your agent and making them money because it's just good. You want to have that good relationship. So I was like super honored that he'd introduced me, and he introduced me. This was a year and a half ago, almost 2 years ago. He introduced me, and so her name is Kirsten. She works at this place called she's an agent at this firm called Foundry. So he introduced me to her, and she's like, hey, you have a great idea, but you need to get your followers up, like, because at the time I only had, I think, like, think about where we are now. This is a year and a half ago. We only had 5,000 or 6,000 subscribers.
So what year was this?
This is 2014. So this is we only had 5,000 or 6,000 subscribers to the whole blog, and this was just before I transitioned to just doing the blog full time. And so my social media, I was still scraping it together. Blog was still scraping it together. She's like, look, I like your idea, but come back. So I had confidence in her ability not only to like sell the book, but also sell it for a good amount of money because she's not gonna fuck around with like a, you know, $500 book deal, you know, whatever. You know, it's not worth her time.
Yeah.
So I had confidence in her ability to do it, but it was more like, okay, now we have to put together a proposal that really gets the eyes of these publishers. Because just because you have an agent doesn't mean that you get to write that doesn't mean that you get to publish a book. The agent is just your manager and your go-between between you and the publishing houses. So we had to put together a proposal. So the proposal is like 70% marketing and 30% content. In terms of like, what assets do you have? How are you going to sell the book? How are you going to get the audience interested? And then it's also like, you'll do an overview of what's in the book. You'll do an overview of like a few sample chapters, and then you'll present that entire document to the different publishing houses, and they can decide whether they want to take it a step further and actually talk to you in person. So the proposal we wrote was about 80 pages, super long.
How long did it take you to write it?
It took me like 3 months. So yeah, so we got that out, and then we just we took the proposal, and then she gives it on my behalf to all the different publishing houses, so all the big ones: Penguin, Random House, Simon & Schuster, Rodale, insert the blank, you know. And then from there, it's their job to see if they like it, see if it's a good fit with their brand, see if they have space for it on the editorial calendar, and then the ones who are interested schedule a meeting with us. I flew to New York, I had some meetings, and then we decided who we wanted to go with.
So if you were gonna give advice like the little guy,
I am the little, it's not like, okay. Yeah, okay.
Well, just like somebody who's like, you're starting from zero, you're starting from scratch. So if they're like, Daniel, I want to get a book deal, what's the plan to do that?
But the thing is, like, you have all these gatekeepers, right? You have like agents, publicists, publishers, record companies, entertainment places, and all these gatekeepers care about really is money. And in order to make sure that they're going to make money off of you as an investment, all they care is that you already have a following built in. Because they're just like, well, does it make sense? Is there a market for it? So I would say find a way to build up your audience first, turn your public followers into email subscribers. Because like, I think it's two things. I think social media, like having X hundred of thousands of followers on social media is important from a branding perspective, because it makes you seem like you're doing something that's worth people's time. It makes you seem like you're doing something that's like exciting and important. But when I was talking to multiple different publishers in their meetings, what they told me too was they'd much rather me have a moderately sized email list than a massive sized social media following.
Okay.
That's interesting, right?
Yeah.
Even though, and I think the social media gets people's eyes, it gets people's attention, but publishers know that email lists are where it's at.
What were the publishing meetings like? The meetings with the actual publishers?
They were really good, I think. So I had 2 meetings. I was upset at first because I thought I was going to have like between 5 and 8 meetings. And I thought I was going to have a lot. And you're laughing because you're like, it doesn't work like that. But I thought I was going to have more. First of all, we only had one scheduled until the day I got to New York. We only had one scheduled, which happened to be with Penguin, who was the one we went with, who we thought was the best fit anyway. I think it's just meant to be. But we only had one meeting scheduled. I'm like, my God, I suck. My book sucks. My idea sucks. Everything sucks. I'm going here for one meeting, and what if I don't like it? Now I'm learning that, like, one, if they take a meeting, they're most likely going to want to buy it, because they wouldn't be, like, meetings with publishers are not that easy to get. It's easier to get a meeting with an agent than a publisher, ostensibly.
Yes.
And
for sure.
If a publisher meets with you, they probably want to buy the book. They just need to know if it's the right number and like fit. Anyway, but I'm going there with one meeting. I was feeling down on myself, feeling bad, kind of discouraged. And then I get a call that the day that I arrived that there's a second meeting with another publisher, and so I was pumped about that. And I talked to some of my friends who also have books out. I'm like, is this normal? Should I only have one or two meetings? Like, what's going on? They're like, yeah, that's fine. That's what happened to me. They weren't 100% sure if they liked the idea, but by the end they were impressed by the concept. And another one of the meetings, I could just tell that they wanted to go, and that was Penguin. Like, they were ready to go.
Were you just presenting to them? Like, how was the flow, and like how long did it last?
It's kind of like a mutual presentation, right? Because it's a mutual selection process. Like, they call me and tell me that they want to talk, but then once I go there, I'm an asset to them. So they're like, okay, we also want to impress him. They also like, these are all the books that we have, because the idea is we're going all around town and we're doing different meetings.
Yep.
And
they don't know how many other players are in the game.
Exactly. And I don't know, they're probably not going to be checking up on this shit, so I don't really care that we mentioned now, but
it's after it's fine.
Yeah, in the process though, like, they never know how many people they're going up against, and so that makes the competition a little bit stiffer, and if they're really interested in a book, they want to lock it down because they have a vision for it. So it's kind of both of us, like them asking me about the book and telling me about them myself, and kind of selling myself in that way, and then them like, okay, well, these are the books that we have, like, these are the ones that have done really well, like, I think you're gonna like working with us because our marketing is like this and that.
So did you like compare yourself to anybody? Like, oh, well, my book is gonna be similar to like this person's.
Yeah, they asked about that.
And who'd you say?
What I said, well, they asked me this question. I said, I don't think that there's a direct parallel in the market, but what I do, there are some people I admire in terms of like their production quality and their like the volume of work they do. And one of the guys I mentioned was Gary Vaynerchuk. I like the fact that he does a book every 18 months to 2 years. I think it keeps it fresh. I think it drives his brand forward. Because I think it keeps it relevant. So I mentioned him, but I don't necessarily think that I'm like him at all. I don't think our brands are necessarily comparable, but I do admire that. So we had a meeting we scoped each other out. We waited for the closing offers, and Penguins was the best offer.
You mentioned that you see the book as your album versus the blog and everything else being like a collection of mixtapes, which is a sweet analogy. I like that.
I'm the only one thinking about books like that. I feel like I am.
I've never heard it before. It's certainly the most original thing about books has ever been said today by this guy right there, Dan.
First thing to ever be said originally.
So, what do you see yourself doing with the book? Is it like a summation of all the stuff you've been writing about up until this point? Is a jumping off point for like a whole new set of ideas that you want to put into the world, and you don't have to, you might not even know. So you know what I mean?
Well, I mean, I think existing readers would be disappointed if we just like did a summation of all the stuff that we've already done, and I don't want to write about that too much anymore. I mean, we still will write about some of those concepts, but I think so we're going to be talking about this new thing that we're developing called the 3 New Truths, right? Mm-hmm. So truth number 1, college is dead. And when I say college is dead, I don't mean that I don't mean that if you have already been to college you made a mistake, but more like self-education is more valuable than institutionalized education at this point. So college is dead. Truth number 2, you don't have to pay your dues, so you can skip steps. We are skipping steps right here. Like the ability to have this type of like organization of just like people making stuff online and making it work, should not happen. So you can skip steps to get where you want to. You don't have to pay your dues. You don't have to go through B to get from A to C. And then the last one is making money doesn't have to be hard. And we talked about this in the publishing meetings I had, because I was talking to them about the 3 New Truths, and they're like, I really like the idea of, not saying that making money is easy, but it doesn't have to be hard. Because we have this idea that that making money is supposed to be challenging by its nature. And it can be very challenging, but it also doesn't have to be challenging. This has all really happened very quickly. Only today, this morning, we had a meeting with publisher and Kirsten today over the phone, where we were talking about dates for publishing. Only then, today, did it finally click. Even after I gone to multiple meetings in New York, signed the deal, done all that, written 80 pages of proposal, only today did it click that, oh, fuck, I have a book deal.
Dude's got a book deal.
Like, this is a real thing. It's like a real thing. Only now did that click. So I'm not at the point where I'm like, listen, peons, let me tell you won't be able to do what I've done. But
I'm an author as opposed to you writer.
Yeah, exactly. Maybe I'm not even an author until the book comes out.
Yeah.
I don't know. But you see what I'm saying? Like,
yeah, and I guess the way I'm thinking is just that people who want to get to where you are or surpass that or whatever. So I guess maybe a concern that people might think is like, how the heck do I come up with book-worthy content? Like, you came up with this thing called the 3 New Truths. That's like epic. Like,
I was drunk.
Okay.
The whole thing.
I guess that would be a question.
You can answer. I'll throw my 2 cents in here. I think that it's something that you just find over time. I mean, when I imagine on day 1 when you started your blog, first article you ever wrote, you didn't have in mind that, what Rich 20 something, like the ethic and principle of Rich 20, and then what it could grow into. Like you just
company culture.
Yeah, like you just started writing about things that you cared about and that were problems for you that you were experiencing, and then you kept writing and you found your voice and you found a following, people who resonated with your message.
The first article was 20-something depression at work, how to overcome the 9-to-5 blues, because I was still at the restaurant.
Literally what you were experiencing.
It's literally what I was experiencing,
So I think the takeaway is that you write about what you care about, and you write about it in such a way as you're trying to address problems that other people are likely facing.
Like you can talk, first of all, you're always going to have your main things you always talk about, but the idea is how do you wrap them up into something attractive?
Yeah.
So, me talking about college not being the best answer, or skipping steps or making money, is not necessarily new material, but it's material framed in a way we haven't talked about. Mm-hmm. And when it's in a package like 3 New Truths, it makes it catchier, so that you can present it in a catchy way. But it's just
just one thing which kind of wraps up, I think, some of your concerns. I think one of the biggest takeaways that I got from this conversation, for people who are looking for some sort of inspiration as to how they could get from being a little lowly blogger
stop disempowering
to
I'm not
getting a book,
you guys.
to getting a book deal, is that only 12, 13, 14 months ago, Daniel had 5,000 email followers. And 5,000 is a lot. We talk about this frequently. If you put 5,000 people in a room,
it's
or it would fill up the whole goddamn street. That's
For
a
sure.
lot. So that's a huge step in and of itself. But it doesn't seem so impossible that a book deal does, for example, or 100,000, which is what we're approaching. Think about it that way. Mm-hmm. There is a compounding effect,
for sure,
where all of your efforts through blog, through social, through Instagram, through whatever else.
Most of the good stuff this year has happened between April and September.
Yeah.
That's literally when, between April and September, the company went from just low 6 figures to mid 6 figures, from just me to you, Charma plus 10 other people, to book deal, to 100,000 plus on Instagram, to almost 100K on the email list, to Time Magazine, Fortune, all that shit. All that happened in 4 or 5 months.
Yeah, and
compounding effect.
I can attest to this because I met with Daniel.
Yeah.
I met with Daniel less than a year ago. I met with you.
January.
It was either January, or
January.
Christmas or January, and you didn't even have 10,000 followers. Email list at that point.
Yeah, 7,000. So first year I got to 800 subscribers. Second year I went from like 800 to 5,000. Third year I went from 5,000 to right now we're at 87,000. But that's the cool thing about like having followers. Having people who follow you or like read your stuff or watch your stuff is non-specific. Like if you wanted to do a book deal, if you wanted to start doing movies, if you wanted to start doing charity events, like just having the followers is the important part, and is because they're really into you as a person and as a personal brand rather than like what you're specifically doing, and so you can direct that focus anywhere you want, you know, which is a powerful thing. I think that's what people are starting to understand more and more. Yeah, I don't know.
Cool.
Good stuff.
Read books, kids.
Read books. Read Daniel's book. When can we expect? This is such a hard answer.
Yeah, well, no. The timeline is we're supposed to have it middle 2016, spring 2016, first draft.
Mm-hmm.
From May to September, edits, all that shit, cover, artwork, all that shit. From like fall 2016 to spring 2017, all the marketing stuff. So like 6 months leading up. We'll release the book in March or April 2017.
Oh wow. Okay.
So
So
hardcover should be on book stands March 17.